Hello everybody. Hello out there. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for visiting this webinar, this workshop of Playnick mouthpieces and the new Silverstein Ambipoly synthetic reeds in combination. My name is Nick. I'm the founder of Playnick and I'm located here in Austria, where so much beautiful music had its beginning centuries ago and still exists out there in the world. So it's a pleasure for me to be here, and thanks for BK and having invited me to this platform that I'm able to introduce you a little bit more the mouthpieces and the reeds out of my production. I'm a professional mouthpiece maker since almost 20 years, and since 12 years I'm deep in contact with synthetic reeds, and I have a lot of experience about the combination of mouthpieces and synthetic reeds, and that will be the topic for this webinar. So I want to introduce you our production, our blockbusters, the most important mouthpieces, the Puccini, the Verdi, the Nomos B2, but also the Brahms, the Weber, and the Mozart Mouthpiece, and a lot more. And I want to introduce you how they are played with the right reeds, what is special for those mouthpieces, and how do they connect to the Ambipoly synthetic reeds. Yeah. So thanks again for joining me, and let's start talking a little bit about mouthpieces. All our mouthpieces, that's very important, are made of pure and fine hard rubber. So this is a rod of hard rubber, and immediately if you can touch it, if you can feel it, you notice that hard rubber is a very warm and natural material. So this material has a good haptic, it feels good, it's a warm material, and exactly this warmth and this depth in this material is also important for classical mouthpieces, for the sound of a classical mouthpiece. I made a lot of mouthpieces in the last 20 years out of many different materials, but honestly, hard rubber of the highest quality is the absolute very best for this classical approach, for this classical sound. Yeah, and that's why we all do our mouthpieces out of pure hard rubber. The next important thing is we don't mold it, we mill it. That's a difference. It's much more complicated, but it has many advantages. So this is the rod, and out of this rod we mill those mouthpieces. So those mouthpieces are made of an hard rubber rod, but we can influence, of course, the making of the mouthpieces with our machines. So we can look what is going inside, how deep is it going, how deep is the window, how are the rails, what is the form, the whole geometry. All those parts we can influence because we don't mold it, we mill it. And there are a lot of secrets. Not only the facing is important, the whole geometry of a mouthpiece is so important. So there are a lot of different things. I can't explain all of them now during this webinar, but I'll try my best to give you a little insight what is important for a high quality mouthpiece. So first of all, I told you the material. Now let's think about the material itself. A mouthpiece is on the clarinet a resonating part, so it resonates. And if you look here, I have here a singing bowl. When I hit it, immediately it resonates. So that's a resonating part, and the mouthpiece is also a resonating part. And that's why the material of a mouthpiece is important because that makes a great sound. If I take, for example, another material, let's say glass, it's a different sound. And probably you can hear that resonating time is less. But it's still resonating. If you take, for example, let me say, another material like plastic, plastic material, so there's PMMA or acryl or all of those different materials, phenol, whatever is used for mouthpieces nowadays, it's dull. It's not resonating, it's just dull. And so the material for a mouthpiece has a big impact, the quality of the material. Of course, hard rubber is expensive and the milling of hard rubber is more expensive. That's why our mouthpieces cost a little bit more, but they are famous for a very warm and very deep and very velvet sound. Okay, material is important, and in Corona times, let's touch again. And a touching sound is very, very important for a clarinet player. Not only for the audience, also for yourself, because the sound is not touching only the audience, your listeners. The sound is also touching you. It's touching you here, it's touching you here. And if you don't like your sound, change it. Because sound matters. Sound is very important. And if you don't like your sound, playing clarinet is not healthy, because it's touching something which is not that what you really like, what is making you happy, what is in a way, yes, transporting your feelings. So the material is pure hard rubber, and then I told you we mill it. What does it mean? Milling a mouthpiece, for example, this is the Puccini, means that you are able to control exactly all the different forms inside the bore, the diameter, so this diameter, so the tip, and of course what is very important, how those tips here are formed. So I show it here. If it is a little smaller, if it is wider, if it has a wider tip, smaller tip, it's very important. I'm not talking about the facing. So the facing is something which comes later. I just talk about the geometry of the mouthpiece itself. So for example, our normal mouthpiece, that's also a French mouthpiece, typically French mouthpiece. The difference between the normal and the Puccini is just here. This one, the Puccini, is a little wider. The normal here is a little smaller. So the size here is different. And the smaller normal is more aligned to the German style, because German mouthpieces are also a little bit smaller at the tip. Now, what does it impact? Imagine a straw. This is a thicker straw. You blow in and the air is going through easily. Now you have a smaller straw. Immediately you feel this resistance because it's a smaller straw. So when I blow in, I have more resistance. Just because of the geometry of those two mouthpieces. The one is a little wider, I show it here. The other is a little thicker, sorry. The mouthpieces have a different resistance. Nothing to do about the form, nothing to do about the geometry. It's just the part here in the tip. Okay, now let's see how those mouthpieces work. I start with the French mouthpiece, the normal B2, and there is another thing I want to inform you. All of our mouthpieces can be played with wooden reeds and with synthetic reeds. I'm working very hard in order to make mouthpieces which can do both on the highest level on a high demand. Okay, let's see. That's a wooden reed. This is the normal B2 French mouthpiece. That's a V12. And because this mouthpiece is a little smaller here, it has a little bit more resistance. So you can play softer reeds because the mouthpiece makes more resistance. Now that's a wooden reed number 3, and immediately it works with that mouthpiece. Very simple. Yeah, easy to blow, very soft, very gentle, and with the right wooden reed it can be a great success because it has a very dark and velvet sound. Now we check it with the Silverstein Ambipoly reed, so that's a reed, let me see, yeah, a Vivace number 3 plus. So the same strength with the wood. Yeah. And also with the synthetic reed, it works on a high level. Yeah, so the normal B2 with a softer Ambipoly reed or with a softer French wooden reed. Now the Puccini mouthpiece, in comparison to the normal mouthpiece, does the same. Just here the tip is a little wider. That means we have to play a little harder reeds. Now half a strength more, that's a 3.5 for the Puccini. Yeah, 3.5. Of course the reed now is a little bit dry, and yes, also probably the sound quality is not on the highest level over this medium, over this microphone, but nevertheless you get an insight. So what is important for a mouthpiece? It has to be clean. That's very important. That the sound here in the middle register is clean immediately. And of course that you feel the same resistance through all the registers. So the lower register, the middle register, and the higher register should have a balanced resistance. That's with a 3.5 French reed. Now the same is with 3.5 Alta Ambipoly reed. Make it wet. Those reeds, they need a little bit water at the beginning, and immediately you can also have, with the Puccini and a synthetic reed, a good feeling. So hopefully this sound quality is coming over the air, and you can get an insight of the possibilities of these combinations. The combination of a mouthpiece and a reed, of course, is very important. I mean, it's clear for all of us. If you check wooden reeds, they don't work all for one mouthpiece. So the same is with a synthetic reed. There's not a synthetic reed possible which is working on every mouthpiece. You have to find something which is really communicating, which is, yes, adjusted to each other. That's very important. So Playnick mouthpieces work together with those reeds and give you both possibilities. Same is with the Verdi mouthpiece. Now, what about the difference between the Verdi mouthpiece and the Puccini mouthpiece? Now we talk about phasing, not about geometry, because the Verdi mouthpiece and the Puccini mouthpiece, they are both totally the same from the shape, from the geometry, from the making, from the material. But the Verdi mouthpiece has a bit a more open facing. But it has also a longer facing. So the facing is not only more open, it's also longer. And that gives you the possibility that you can play with a little bit more open facing, nevertheless a harder reed for your sound quality. So although the Verdi mouthpiece is a little bit more open, I can play a reed 3.5 or even 4 with a good success. Now why? Because of the longer facing, the reed is closing immediately a little bit more, and that's why I can have a harder reed with that mouthpiece. But I have to take it because it's more open, not too much in the mouth. So that's the next thing about facings. Those tip openings also impact how deep you take in a mouthpiece. And the Puccini mouthpiece or the normal Speed 2 mouthpiece, you have to take a little bit wider, a little bit longer in your mouth. The Verdi mouthpiece is a mouthpiece which can be played with a little bit smaller embouchure. So you only touch the tip, and you don't take the mouthpiece too much in your mouth. Let's see. Now that's a reed number 4 with the Verdi mouthpiece. it still gives an intensive and warm character. So nothing hollow, nothing empty. There's always a sound in the center, in the middle and in the low register. This is what my mouthpieces represent. So not only a fine sound in the high register, even in the middle. In the low register, and of course in the high register, it is always in the center and gives this very intensive sound for the romantic and for the classical music. That's why those mouthpieces are called Puccini, Verdi. This is a symbol of the romantic classical music. And also later on the Brahms and the Weber mouthpiece, they both represent the same. So let's change now to an Ambipoly reed. This time number 4, of course. We can play harder reeds. If you put on a synthetic reed, show it like this, don't put it too much down. Put it a little bit more up. That helps the synthetic reed to sound better. So normally, for example, with a wooden reed, you would put it exactly to the tip, matching to the tip, but a synthetic reed can be a little bit more up if you notice that the sound quality is a little bit bassy. If it is bassy, then just put it up a little bit more. That helps. Yeah, this is was probably a bit too much up, so I play it again. Yeah, also the Verdi mouthpiece can be played with a synthetic reed. And I'm having another workshop on Friday, an hour with Nick, so probably you want to join me again. Then I explain a little bit more about the preparation of the reeds and how you can handle little problems. I ask questions about mouthpiece and then reeds. And so if there is something which is not 100% clear to you, then join me on Friday and I'll have another chance to give you a little help, to give you a little support. Now, let's come to a big difference, the German and the French mouthpieces. I explained already the geometry is very important. Tip, not only the facing, all the inside. And if we look to, for example, now a German mouthpiece, this is the Brahms mouthpiece, then you see immediately that's a big difference. So you see it here, okay? Oh. So the German mouthpiece is smaller, the French mouthpiece is thicker. The tip of the German mouthpiece is smaller, the French mouthpiece is thicker. So those two mouthpieces are completely different from the concept. And a German mouthpiece was very interesting so far for the German clarinet, but in the meantime, very many players play a reform Böhm clarinet. And if you play a reform Böhm clarinet like Wurlitzer or Leitner Krauss or Schmenkensegelke, then you have also the chance to play a German mouthpiece with a German bore. And I explained a little bit the difference. If you look at the German mouthpiece, as I told already, it is smaller. But on the other side, the bore is wider. So the French bore is smaller. It's a smaller bore. Here in the German mouthpiece, it's a wider bore. Now you have a smaller mouthpiece with a wider bore in comparison to a thicker mouthpiece with a smaller bore. What does it mean? It's very simple. The mouthpiece concept means that German mouthpieces have a much thinner wall. So this wall, you know, the thickness of the diameter inside and outside, the material is less. You have less material, less wall thickness. And that means that, of course, German mouthpieces are resonating earlier, resonating faster. So here with a French mouthpiece, we have much more material packed on the mouthpiece. And that means the mouthpiece gives a resistance, but not here on the tip, on the back from the corpus in a way. And here the sound is damped a little bit, so reduced. And here the sound is more, it gives more projection, it gives more focus. And so a German mouthpiece immediately is going a little bit more direct out to the audience, whereas a French mouthpiece is going a little bit more round. Therefore, the German mouthpiece has a little bit more center. It's more centered. And this is probably one of the biggest differences about mouthpieces of a German style and the French style. Now, this is the Verdi mouthpiece. Let's start with the Verdi. So that's the Verdi mouthpiece. And the comparison is in German style, the Weber mouthpiece. So you have here the Weber mouthpiece. And it has the same facing than the Verdi mouthpiece. So it's a little bit more open. Don't take it too far in your mouth. And of course you can play it with the same French reeds. But you can also play it with German reeds. So if you play these German mouthpieces with a reformed Böhm clarinet, you have both possibilities, German reeds and French reeds. I show you this now in detail. Okay. So this is the Weber mouthpiece, a German mouthpiece, and you can play it, for example, with a French reed. That's a reed number 3. I fix it now. There's a different ligature. Okay, so it makes the same sound in a way, but the feeling is immediately it goes out more directly. With French Ambipoly Silverstein reed, the same. yeah, that's the French reed combination with the Weber. Now I show you the German reed combination. So this is Steuer, German reed. Those reeds are smaller, much smaller than the French reeds, and because of the geometry of the Weber mouthpiece, you can play both. It's also a strength 3. And now, new to the Silverstein company is the German Silverstein reed, Ambipoly synthetic reed, German style. So with the same strength 3 should be, yes. You can also play the Weber mouthpiece. Okay, now I show you a little bit the Weber on a German reed. Makes the same good sound, plays up, plays down, and with a lot of a variety of different reed brands, the French reed and the German reed. Now the Brahms mouthpiece, this one, the Brahms, the Brahms mouthpiece now is the same, or in a way the same than the Puccini mouthpiece, but in German. So the German issue of the Puccini mouthpiece is called Brahms. And here again we have, for a reformed Bern clarinet or a German clarinet, both possibilities. You can play it in French with French reeds, but remember, smaller facing. The difference between the Puccini and the Verdi is the same with the Weber and the Brahms. It's a smaller facing, so you have to play a little bit softer reeds. That's a 2.5. And of course the 2.5 of the Ambipoly. Okay, let's see how that works. Okay, and now with the German reed, same possibilities. So yeah, with the German reed, immediately you get a little bit more power in the center, in the middle of the sound. Hopefully you can hear that out there. German Silverstein 2+. I think it's a 2+, 2.5 or 2+. You can have the same results. So you have again a large variety of possibilities in wood and in synthetic. German reed, German mouthpiece. As I told you, possible for all the reform Brahms clarinet players out there. Okay, so I'll give you now another insight about synthetic reeds and the advantage of playing a synthetic reed. I mean, synthetic reeds are a big advantage for teaching, for the young beginners, for the amateur players, but even for the semi-professionals and professionals. So there are a lot of professional players who already play on synthetic reeds because it has many advantages. So you have stable quality, you have a reliability. Yeah, it is simple. Yeah, you just take it, the mouthpiece with the reed, put it on, and play. It works. And this is, of course, for a very, very high level of demand, always a question of the soloist, of his habits, of his convenience, how he is really forming the sound. But for so many players out there, it's really a big, big advantage because they have a stable quality and yeah, they don't think about reeds. And if you are a teacher, for example, I mean, you come in with those cases, you know, with your wooden reeds, and then you, this one probably, or this one, it's working, and then you check it and it doesn't work, and then you check the next one, and yeah, for young students, it doesn't make a very good impression if you just try and they see and they notice, ooh, clarinet playing is difficult, it's not so easy, this with the reeds, that's really tricky. The best is you come in and say, look, it's that easy, put it on, enjoy music. And that's why I'm so focusing on synthetic reeds, even now for the oboe and for the bassoon coming the next time, and of course in combination with mouthpieces, in order to give the next generation more joy, more fun, more easiness in learning this instrument. Okay, now we have a little bit time left for another insight. If we go from the German mouthpiece to the Austrian mouthpiece. Now that's an Austrian mouthpiece, that's the Nomos Alpha. It's that what I introduced now to Wenzel Fuchs. And this mouthpiece is totally the same in a way. So it's the same shape, it's the same geometry, but again, it has a much wider bore. The Austrian bore is thicker, wider, and that means even again this walls, so the diameter of the walls, the wall thickness is reduced. That means it again is resonating earlier, and that gives the advantage that Austrian players like Wenzel or the Ottensammers or all this Austrian playing style, they can play harder reeds. Harder reeds, that doesn't mean it plays harder, it means it has a little bit more resistance from the reeds because the mouthpiece is resonating earlier. Now this mouthpiece, for example, is the latest issue. It's, as I told you, the Nomos Alpha, and with the new Silverstein Ambipoly reeds in German, so this is 4.5 plus. That means I can play much harder than with a Brahms or a Weber mouthpiece. which I had a strength of 3. And now I show you a little bit the difference, because playing an Austrian system means also that the facing, yeah, is much more closed. And this very closed facing means the concept of the playing comes very much here from your breathing system. So the breathing system, you have really breathe in and breathe in your back. Yeah? And you have to use the whole breathing system and let the air flow in order to make this system work, which is just different. It's not right or wrong or better or false. It's a different technique. And if you are used to this technique, then it's not so difficult to play Austrian mouthpieces. Austrian mouthpieces have a resistance from the lower register to the middle register to the higher register. So the same resistance through the whole registers, and all those notes are a little bit, let me say, reduced, yeah, from the beginning. So with the breathing system, then you bring in this air, and then it can sound really fantastic. Yeah, you need more power from the bottom of your breathing system, but Austrian systems are still often requested, and with a German bore, I produce those mouthpieces and the systems also with German bore, you again can play it with a reform Brahms clarinet, and I know a lot of people who buy those Austrian systems and play it on the reform Brahms clarinet. Yeah. Good, and last but not least, there is the Mozart Mouthpiece. This is, yeah, Mozart, a typical Austrian mouthpiece, played with the harder wooden reeds. There are no synthetic reeds for this mouthpiece because, yeah, probably once it will be possible, but for the moment this is a typical Austrian quality hard rubber, harder reeds. Those very silent notes. Yeah, different style of playing, but very famous here in Austria, and also for the reform Brahms clarinet, those Mozart mouthpieces with the Leutner and Pilgersdorfer and Steuer reeds of the harder size. Okay, so yeah, synthetic reeds. As I told you, the mouthpieces are made of hard rubber, and hard rubber is coming from a tree. So that's a very ecological way of making mouthpieces, because it's just the blood of the trees coming out, and then this material has to be cleaned. It's a very difficult process to get it really pure and clean, and then out of this hard rubber material you can vulcanize it, and then you get, as I told you, this rod, and out of this rod then you can do those mouthpieces in order to get in touch of this fantastic natural and very ecological material. Same is with synthetic reeds. So synthetic reeds, they are not made of plastic. That's not a standard plastic you can get everywhere. So there's a very, very high and intensive knowledge, science, technology. You see, this is the heart in the reed, and there's a lot of knowledge and know-how to make a synthetic reed. You can imagine how difficult it is to find wood for the clarinet. So nature brought out thousands and thousands of different kinds of wood, like oak and pine and mahogany and teak and rosewood and what else, grenadille, and all those woods, they don't work. So it's only Arundodonax which is working, and from this Arundodonax you can't use every cane. So you just have to select out of a big harvest. You select very, very high quality canes in order to make reeds out of this material. And then you have your assortment of reeds, and still not all of them are working on the highest quality. So you can imagine how difficult it is to make synthetic reeds, but it's not impossible. And the level is already very, very high, and as I told you, many, many top players switch more and more to the synthetic reeds because it has big advantages. It's good for teaching, it's good for studying of the young people. They just play it like a flute. They don't have trouble with the wood, and also it is ecological. So this is, for example, the waste I get when I open one box of standard wooden reeds. All of that, so the packaging, the foil, those covers, you see, out of that material I can do at least 10, 15 high quality synthetic reeds, and those reeds last long, they are reliable, and yes, can be even recycled once. And this is just waste. So also to reduce plastic waste, this is much more ecological. Okay, thank you very much now for joining me, for joining this webinar. I want to close with two other instruments. We have also the E flat instrument. So this is the VS Soloist Mouthpiece with also the E flat reeds from Ambipoly material. And here just a quick demonstration how this works. So that's a reed Strands 3. Okay, sorry about that. Again, a reed Strands 3. Yeah, the intonation is of course not working because this is a French mouthpiece and that's a German clarinet. So again, I show you this with the right mouthpiece for this clarinet. I need the same VS Soloist, but with the right bore and the right mouthpiece, and then those high notes are also in tune. Same reed, by the way. Now I can play up to the high C with the E flat clarinet with those synthetic reeds. They are stable, they are reliable, and that's why I recommend that really for all of the amateurs also who have not so much time to practice, have not the time to buy a lot of reeds. Those combinations, they work immediately. Okay, so that was the E flat clarinet, and last but not least, we go down and I show you the bass clarinet. We have here two mouthpieces, in short now explained. So this is the Ravel mouthpiece. Ravel, you can play with wooden reeds, and of course also with the bass clarinet reeds. And we have the Fun mouthpiece, so that's a Fun. And again, Silverstein Ambipoly reed, and right away the system. Bass clarinet, also a good system. The Fun mouthpiece, the synthetic reeds, that's a strength number 2+ for the Fun mouthpiece. That's a little bit more open. And the very classical one, the Ravel mouthpiece. And thanks for joining again. If there are any questions about further information or whatever you need, then I'm back again on Friday at don't know the time internationally, but you see it on the schedule from this Woodwind Festival. And yeah, pleasure had you all here, and so bye bye, and have a nice time.